Well, we can hear now from the government, and the Energy Secretary Ed Miliband joins us now from Hull. Very good morning to you, and I want to talk all about your clean energy plans in just a moment. Before we get to that, though, just got a few questions on some of the news stories of the morning. And to kick off with, I want to ask you about Syria, because back in 2013, when you were leader of the opposition, you voted against David Cameron's plans for military action in response to President Assad's chemical attacks on his own people. This morning, we've been hearing from some of the people affected by those attacks. So do you regret that decision now?
No, I don't. I mean, let me say, first of all, that obviously what we just heard was a horrific account of President Assad's brutality, and I welcome the fall of President Assad. Back in 2013, we were confronted with whether we should have a potential one-off bombing of Syria, but there was no plan for what this British involvement would mean, where it would lead, and what the consequences would be. And I believe that in the light of the Iraq war, we could never send British troops back into combat unless we were absolutely clear about what a plan was, including what an exit strategy was. Now, to those people who say that President Assad would have fallen if we'd bombed him in 2013, that's obviously wrong, because President Trump bombed President Assad in 2017 and 2018, so he didn't fall. So I welcome the fall of a brutal dictator, but I think the view that some people seem to be expressing about history is just wrong.
Some would say that the decision to block military action not only gave President Assad confidence, but also Russia confidence, not just in the region, but beyond, because it signalled weakness from the UK and other Western countries. What would you say to those critics?
I think it's very easy for people to say that the answer to the problems of the world is British military intervention. But as I sort of said earlier, in this case, we have a clear understanding of what the consequences might have been, because in 2017 and 2018 there was military action against President Assad, and it certainly didn't precipitate the fall of his regime. I took the decisions I did because the British involvement in Iraq led to the deaths of our troops and was rightly, in my view, seen as a very serious error. And so without going over all of that history, I think we drew the right lessons from that.
I just want to ask you as well about NATO and defence spending, because Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, has talked about a need to switch to a war mindset and a need to turbocharge defence spending. Your government at the moment has an ambition to reach 2.5% of GDP for defence spending, but we don't know when that will happen. And now there are talks going on with some countries suggesting that target needs to be higher, up to 3%. Are we going far enough in this country on defence spending?
Look, the Chancellor made an important allocation to defence in the budget, and defence is a really important priority for this government. Indeed, it's the top priority of the government to keep our nation safe. But I think it's easy to say we should spend a certain percentage of GDP. The decision the Chancellor's got to make is, well, where's she going to find the money? And what are the competing priorities? And so lots of people from the outside can say the Chancellor should tax less, spend more and borrow less. Her difficult job is to actually make it all add up. And I think she's given the right priority to defence with her decisions, including in the budget.
Quick word on the growth figures out this morning as well. The latest GDP figures show that in October the economy shrank by 0.1%. Your government says it wants the UK to have the fastest growth in the G7. I mean, that's looking like a pretty tough target, isn't it?
Well, these are 1 month's figures, and what I'm talking about today is absolutely part of the mission for growth of this government, because I'm here at a wind turbine factory here in Hull, employing 1,300 people. And Anna, honestly, the future is being built at this factory. The future of our country, the future of our energy system, the future of a growing economy. And I think that's what's so exciting about what we're doing today. We're talking about an age of clean electricity, which can give us energy security, lower bills, good jobs and growth, and tackle the climate crisis. So we're not just talking about it, we've got a plan to make it happen.
OK, so let's talk about those plans. I'm just taking a look at National Grid's live data dashboard of figures, and at the moment the proportion of energy coming from fossil fuels, you can see it there, it's just over 75% currently. That's at this very moment. Now you want to get that down to a maximum of 5% by 2030. That is a huge change and a massive challenge. Is it really doable?
Absolutely, it's a big challenge. And you know what? The British people voted for big change at the election, and we're going to deliver it. And it is absolutely deliverable. And the reason we've got to deliver it is at the moment when we are dependent on fossil fuels, as you pointed out, we have no control over what is going to happen to our energy security or our energy prices, because we are subject to the roller coaster of the fossil fuel markets, the decisions of petrostates and dictators like Putin. And we know what happens when we're in that grip. We saw it in the cost of living crisis, the cost of living crisis that is still very much going on. And we are going to need to change things. We do need big, bold reform to make this happen. Big reform of our planning system, big reform of the way that we give projects a priority in what's called the grid queue, so connecting to the national grid. That's all part of our plan, but it's absolutely the right thing for our country for a whole host of reasons, and it's absolutely doable.
And during the election campaign, you said that it would bring people's bills down. You put a figure on it. You said up to £300 per year would come off their energy bills by 2030. Do you stand by that figure?
Yes, absolutely. We can bring bills down by up to £300. And don't take my word for the fact that we can have lower bills. The Independent National Energy System Operator produced a report which informs today's action plan, which said that going to a renewable system, a predominantly renewable system, would reduce the cost of electricity and could lead to lower bills. And there's a really important reason for that, which is as you build, once you build that renewable energy, it's much cheaper than, for example, a gas-fired power station to operate. So it's absolutely the foundation of lower bills. That's one of the reasons it's such an important project for the country.
OK, so how soon will people have lower bills? Because you've brought forward the target for clean energy forward by 5 years compared to the Tories' plans. Some people are saying that will push up costs in the short term. They cite stretching supply chains and pushing up demand. So do you accept that bills may have to go up in the short term?
No, I don't. And again, this is what's so important about what we're doing, because we know from the National Energy System Operator that not only can we have investment of something like 40 billion a year, mainly private investment into our country, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs, but we can also get lower bills. Now, to answer your question, it'll take time, but every solar panel we put up, every wind turbine we build, every piece of grid infrastructure, and some people won't like it, but every piece of grid infrastructure we build helps us towards energy security and lower bills. And that's why it's such a big prize. There are trade-offs. Some people won't like this infrastructure being built. We think it's the right thing to do for the country, and the country gets to judge us on whether it agrees with us. I actually think the country does want to see this happen. They don't want to see the kind of energy insecurity that we've seen over the last few years.
You say some people won't like what you have to do. I've seen an estimate of more than 600 miles of new power lines and pylons are going to have to be built. You can imagine areas of real local opposition to that. So what are you going to offer them? Are you going to offer them any kind of compensation to make up for the fact that they are having their local area built on like this? Well,
the first thing to say is we do need to build the grid. Local people get to have a say in this, but we are going to need this infrastructure, and if we don't build this infrastructure, the consequences are, as I've said. We do want to see, though, and this is an important question you ask, direct benefit for local communities, and we're looking at different options here. Could be bill discounts, community funds, so we're absolutely open to that. as part of our plans, and we're going to be saying more about it in the coming weeks. But so absolutely, local communities that host clean energy infrastructure should benefit from it.
And Ed Miliband, I really ought to let you go, but just one more question about sandwiches, if that's OK, because it's obviously Kemi Badenoch's interview.
Definitely,
has prompted...
I'm here for the sandwich content.
Excellent. We're very pleased to hear it. As you will know, Kemi Badenoch has done an interview. She's expressed some strong views on the subject. She says she doesn't think they're real food. You famously battled with a bacon sandwich about 10 years ago, and you'll be pleased to know we're not going to show the pictures. Has that changed your view on sandwiches? What's your feeling about them now?
I mean, look, I wish I could have a cross-party consensus here with Kemi Badenoch, but I can't. I think I need to persuade her of the delights of a bacon sandwich.
Good to talk to you this morning, Ed Miliband. Thanks very much indeed. We all know what's on your lunch menu now. Thank you.